Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Digital Data Camp presentation night. My name is Courtney Kudra, and I work for Headwaters Science Institute. I am the Research Experience and Data Program Manager. I'm so excited to have everyone here this evening. We have three awesome students that are going to be presenting for us tonight. But before we get moving on that, there's a few things I want to share with everyone. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the comments. We're going to ask our students a few questions here, but I definitely want to share any of the audience's questions or comments throughout the night. So be sure to put those questions in the comment box on wherever you may be watching. And then also the other thing I want to plug for is for our research experience. If you, a student you know, would be interested in doing the research experience, which is a 12-week long experience where students create their own scientific manuscript for publication. Please go ahead and check that out. We are all full up for the fall, but we have space for the spring. Reminder for everyone who's joining us that we are Headwaters Science Institute and that this is our Digital Data Camp presentation night. So for our first presenter here, we have Arnav. Arnav is super wonderful. He has been such a joy to have in class. With the three of us, it's been a pretty small class and it's been really fun to have everyone. Arnav has even helped me sometimes in our coding. So just a reminder for everyone, these students here not only did a scientific project looking at certain research questions and data, they also learned how to code in Python through Google Colab. A lot of them came in learning about data science and AI, and then we were able to find databases for themselves, and they're able to create data visualizations that represent some of their research questions, hypotheses, and other background information that they'll be sharing with you. So without further ado, our very first presenter, Arnav, you can go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. So, hi, my name is Arnav Chitari. Today, I want to present my presentation about analyzing traffic trends with data. The reason I wanted to explore this topic is because living in Austin for a while, I've kind of seen a lot of growth recently in the city. And with that growth, the main thing that's affected my daily life is obviously traffic. So just kind of, I've been exploring solutions in my own city, and I wanted to kind of take a deeper dive and learning like data visualization through this project helped me kind of form my own conclusions about how to help my own city and aid it in its growth. So to start, I first wanted to tackle the question itself, which is how can we reduce congestion? And I came up with some hypotheses on my own, just from my own knowledge without doing any research beforehand. So the number one conclusion that I thought would be the answer would be that increasing public transportation networks is what reduces congestion. And that's kind of self-explanatory because obviously building trains and bus networks and trains and bus networks would reduce the incentive to drive and would reduce the need to have a car to get anywhere. The second hypothesis that I thought of was taxing congestion and carbon dioxide emissions. So that's another one where obviously that decentralizes congestion and makes cities kind of scramble to figure out ways to reduce emissions, which in turn would force them into creating traffic solutions that would mitigate those types of taxes. And then the last hypothesis that I came up with was simply just to increase density, which isn't as direct a solution for transportation, but increasing density increases walkability and it lets you bike or walk anywhere without having to live in a spread out suburb where you have to drive just to go to the grocery store, just to go to school. When you increase density, you can walk around a lot more. So that's just another way where you no longer have to drive and you're no longer being a part of the traffic. And then in exploring these hypotheses, I wanted to do some background research before I actually did the data visualization. And while doing so, I came across one person who has actually written a lot of research papers on this topic of congestion, and that's Giles Duranton, who is an economist at the University of Pennsylvania. And one thing he said from one of his papers that stuck out to me the most was he actually kind of flipped my hypotheses. Like as I said, my number one hypothesis was that increasing public transportation networks is what would be the main way of mitigating traffic. But after reading his papers, he kind of explained that just like what happens when you add another lane to a highway, um, increasing public transportation networks and adding lanes to highways, both of those solutions kind of temporarily resolve the issue where you now have more space on the roads because there's less people taking up that space. But as that space opens up, that invites induced demand and invites new drivers onto the road. And in the end, you're going to have the same problem that you started with, and then you're just going to be in that cycle forever. So reading Giles Duranton, that he kind of confirmed the second hypothesis, which was kind of a surprise to me, where he said that the main solution that he thinks is the best way to deal with congestion is to tax congestion, also known as congestion pricing, because there's no way of getting around that. At that point, that like cost is going to go down to the citizens. So it kind of forces everyone to find new ways to not be on the road. So I wanted to confirm whether or not this was true with my data visualizations, which I will go over next. I have 3 visualizations here that I made to kind of look through those different hypotheses. The first one I want to look at is the worldwide traffic congestion on the left, which is showing on the horizontal axis, you can see the names of different cities, major cities that I thought were relevant in this case study. And then on the left, the vertical axis there is showing average TCI, and TCI stands for the traffic congestion index. So the cities with higher traffic congestion index numbers are the ones that had the most traffic. And then on the right, just the colors and the shades, the darker the color is showing a higher rank. So you can see there's lower numbers towards the bottom. And that's just ranking cities by traffic. So you can see Mumbai all the way at the bottom with the darkest color because it has the worst traffic congestion out of all of these cities. And then my next data visualization was just to confirm whether I wanted to see whether these rankings were actually consistent with the TCI metric. So I wanted to see if there was like some sort of linear trend that could come from visualizing that. And you can see that there is. On the horizontal axis, you have the ranks of each of the cities. And on the vertical axis, you have the max TCI. So you can see as the rank of the city goes up, which means they're ranked based on traffic congestion. So the higher the rank, the lower the amount of congestion is. And the higher the rank, the lower the max traffic congestion index was. So that kind of confirmed that the data actually was relevant and could be applicable. And then the last visualization that I have is I wanted to go, the other 2 graphs are more on a macro scale of looking just at the world as a whole. And then on a micro scale, I wanted to look at the city of Chicago, obviously a big city which has some public transportation infrastructure, but also has a lot of congestion. And in doing so, I found that the peaks around bars 28 and bars 2, those are 2 different neighborhoods, numbered neighborhoods, which had the highest speeds at the time that this data was collected. And that was indicative of a lower amount of traffic because all of these regions were fairly in main roads. So it's not like these are all just based on like speed limits in neighborhoods. They all had like fairly high speed limits. So the ones with the highest amounts of the speed kind of shows a lack of congestion in those areas. And the neighborhoods that I found that had the highest average speeds were the ones that had the most direct access to public transportation nearby, and that were the most dense. So that kind of confirmed my third hypothesis as also maybe being a possibility, because obviously increased density was what I was talking about there. And using this third visualization, I did find that the neighborhoods in Chicago that were more dense and that were more accessible for biking and walking to train stations or bus stations, they had higher speeds on the roads. And then, so just to look back at the first graph again, two of the cities that I found interesting that I wanted to delve deeper into were Singapore and New York City. So you'll see both of those on that first graph over there. New York City is kind of towards the bottom of the heat map, where it has a higher average TCI and a higher rank for congestion, while Singapore is lower. And those are two very big major cities in different parts of the world. So in order to confirm which hypothesis to truly take away from this collection of visualizations, I wanted to do a more focused view onto those two cities specifically. So when I did so, I learned that both of these cities have pretty robust public transportation networks. New York City is famous for their subway system, which is connecting a lot of the city together. And Singapore also has their own similar public transportation network. And despite both having respectable amounts of public transportation, one city, which was New York City, was really congested and was one of the highest congested cities. And Singapore, on the other hand, is known for being not congested at all and very well planned. So I was trying to see where the disconnect was, because obviously it wasn't the public transportation. And then I found that Singapore has this concept called electronic road pricing, or ERP system, which is the most advanced congestion pricing system in the world. It involves like real-time monitoring of traffic, and with that, dynamic pricing. So as congestion goes up, the prices go higher, and vice versa. So this incentivizes people to find ulterior routes if they're still going to drive, or they have to find new modes of transport if all those ulterior routes also get filled up, because now they're being forced to pay for the congestion that they're causing. New York City, on the other hand, it has plans for a taxing system in the future that has been proposed, but there's no current taxing system in place. So that was kind of the main thing that I saw was causing New York City to be so high up on the congestion rankings while Singapore is so low, is that they both have public transportation networks, but in New York City, there's no incentive for the average person to not contribute to that congestion, which there would be if there was some sort of taxation system. And that made me come to the final conclusion that the second hypothesis that I initially came up with, which was that taxing congestion and carbon emissions was the best solution. And that was then backed up by the background research I did with Giles Duranton's research papers. That turned out to be the correct solution. So then I wanted to look back at Chicago just to see, not to come to any other conclusion, just to see how it was likely to improve in the future. And while there is also, there used to not be any taxation system, just like New York City. They actually, as recently as 2020, came out with a rideshare tax, which is where they're taxing like Uber and Lyft and those types of companies for the congestion they cause. And the main demographic of people who are using ride sharing apps are usually the people who aren't going to be driving themselves. So now that those taxes have to be incurred on to them, those people are likely to, since they weren't driving anyways themselves, they are likely to seek public transportation or some other sort of more sustainable means of transport that contribute less to congestion. So just to summarize, what I found from this research was that a well-designed and advanced taxing system, which uses dynamic pricing for taxing congestion, is the best solution for reducing congestion. And I found that through the background research, and then especially through the data that I was able to visualize during this camp. So yeah, that's all for my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Arnav. I know that your project was super interesting. I've definitely learned a lot, and I know a lot of us here in class with you have as well. So I have a few questions for you today, and a reminder to the audience, anyone out there, we would love to have questions from the audience. So if you want to go ahead and make a comment and ask Arnav a question, or anyone else throughout the presentations. Arnav, my first question for you is, How do you think that these solutions that you found could apply to your home city of Austin?
Yeah, so that's a great question. In Austin specifically, I've advocated at like city council and transit partnership council meetings for a plan called Project Connect, which is actually already been approved, and that is the kind of the first hypothesis that I was thinking about, which is where they're introducing public transportation networks and widening like the metro system, increasing bus stops and providing more buses. So that's definitely a really good start. I was really happy that that went through. But like I said, I didn't know back when I was advocating for that like all of this information where taxing congestion was actually the number one solution. I just found out about that, and now knowing that it's important for me to continue advocating like I was for the Project Connect plan, which is definitely going to help because currently Austin is really car centric. There's no real public transportation infrastructure, so the current efforts are definitely going to help. But I think that the taxing congestion idea has not been something that's really been proposed too seriously, and I think that's the number one most applicable solution to kind of incorporate.
That's awesome, Arnav. Well, that was such a good answer to your question, and I really enjoyed your presentation. But for time, we're going to move on to our next presenter. I feel like you could talk about this for so long because I've been able to hear your passion in class and not only see your data visualization, but all this background research that you've done as well. So I am so excited. It was so much fun to have you in class, and thank you. Good luck in everything else that comes your way.
Thank you.
Yeah. So our next presenter that we're gonna have up is our other student who went by the name of Pete. His nickname Pete throughout class, but his full name is Prathiv, and he's been such a joy to have in class. He has a relatively similar project to Arnav, but looking at it through a different lens, looking at AI's impact on driving. There's definitely a lot to be learned from his project, and it's been so much fun to work with him in class, discuss these different ideas of AI's impact on everyday driving and what it could mean in the future. So, Pradeep, if you're ready to go, you can go ahead and start.
Sorry for the wait.
No worries.
Yes. So, hello. My name is Prithvi. Just my light for you there. So that it's actually yes. Okay, here. Okay. Yes. So, hello. My name is Prithvi Krishnan. I am a junior at Westwood High School here in Austin, Texas, and my project today that I will be discussing with you about is AI's impact on driving here. So let me give you a quick just summary of the situation. So in the US, there is a new phenomenon over the last few years with Teslas and all these different cars going electric. There's a lot more implementation of autonomous driving with the new implementations of AI and other softwares with like ChatGPT in your like home like devices and all these other things. AI driving has now been a very prevalent and very important part of driving, but there are many risks to go along with it. So my research question here today is how does AI affect the safety of driving? So as you all know, driving is the number one thing that pretty much every single adult does in today's world. And with the new implementation of AI, we want to know how does this new implementation affect the safety of driving? So my hypothesis is that I believe there is a significant decrease in safety specifically for automobiles due to AI. This will be discussed through different data visualizations and through different pieces of background information, which I will explain to you shortly. So going to that background information, as I stated earlier, AI is a very prevalent topic in today's world. AI is because of this new implementation, now the internet and now technology is so prevalent and so big in today's world. We cannot just take this lightly with its improvements and its consequences on our new technologically advanced world, especially in driving. AI in driving has popped out specifically lately due to the last few years of the improvements in AI driving, because when it first came out a few years ago, there were a lot more bugs and problems, especially in Teslas, and they have fixed these problems. But what I'm here today to talk about with you is that these issues are, even though there are other car companies who do AI car production, all these companies, not just Tesla, are all showing issues in their cars. So, as I stated, these cars are very, in some ways, are very helpful to the environment because they are electric, which means that they're more renewable and helping the earth become more green. But does this reduce the amount of road-related injuries? We will find out. How AI is supposed to be helping people on the road, but like I stated, and like you've heard on the news, there are many reports of road-related issues with AI cars. Especially this year, there was a Super Bowl ad detailing how Tesla's autonomous driving sensors and everything are very are malfunctioning a lot and are not able to keep up with the amount of traffic there is today. However, this doesn't just show the negative. AI has improved the feasibility of driving and decreased driver fatigue while lowering stress levels of people in cars. See, this is very important to talk about because you have to show both perspectives of this, and showing how AI has improved the feasibility of driving is 100% true. And the stress levels while driving in a car and the fatigue that drivers get while driving a car has reduced significantly because most of them don't have to drive that much anymore because of the AI. So as we look at these two first graphs, we look at the traffic in Chicago in 2022. Like Arnav stated in the last presentation, it is a very prominent place for driving, and it has a very strong car saturation. And in all 8 of these directions, there are many areas where there are lengths and lengths of traffic every single day. So this is showing how, especially in areas like westbound and southbound and northbound, in those areas, in eastbound, all in those areas, there's 0.5 to a mile's worth of traffic every single day in Chicago as of 2022, which, even though it's still 2023, this traffic has not changed that significantly in 1 year. So this is showing how the traffic in Chicago in 2022, and this is not implementing any AI cars whatsoever, is already so poor that AI will be able to hamper the traffic in a certain way, but also could help reduce the feasibility of people driving in these very tight areas, especially in westbound and southbound. And in the next graph, we will be showing one of the sadder parts of the presentation, the amount of crashes in 2021 due to AI in cars. As you can see here, this is covering the whole of the United States, and this is covering all car companies that cover AI cars. So as you can see here, there are numbers on the x-axis covering the different types of car companies. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is Tesla. Lexus, Ford, Acura, and Mercedes-Benz. And then after that, there are many other car companies like the BMW, Acura, Audi, and so much, and so many more types of cars which have come into the AI car system. And as you can see here on the y-axis, you are covering the property damage. So the number 20 represents if there was property damage. Number 21 represents if there was none. And then in number 22 is if it was unknown. So as you can see here, in the number 20 area, there are a lot of car companies that their AI cars during their crashes cover extreme amounts of property damage, which means that these are major crashes and these are very significant injuries. And then in 21 here, you can see that these were very minor crashes, and you can see these are the smallest amount of data on this graph, which shows how this graph is detailing how the AI cars are giving major damages to people and their lives due to these AI cars, even though there could be a feasibility in traffic or in stress. And then you can see in number 22 here, there is an unknown and there is an amount of data collection which hasn't been shown in a lot of the different data sets. So in the last two graphs we will show here, shows the AADT, the amount of actual driving time in New York. And as Arnav said, there is a big subway system that has been implemented there over the last several decades. But still, looking at these different county codes of Queens and Bronx and Sussex and Dutchess and all of these counties that are there, there still is a heavy amount of driving traffic in New York. And even though there is a subway system, even though the public transportation there is still in full strides, there is so much traffic without AI. So what I'm trying to get at here is that even though these graphs don't show AI traffic and AI cars implemented in this traffic, there's still so much traffic in New York and Chicago and the biggest cities in America that show how just because AI can, after it, reduce the amount of traffic doesn't mean that it can reduce the amount of safety in while driving your vehicle or AI driving your vehicle. And in the second graph here, you can show the see the amount of AI related crashes in the whole of the US, not detailing any of the car companies, just the actual like number figures. So the X-Max is not, the numbers aren't shown here because there are so many AI related crashes in the US as of last year that I can't even find a data set that has an X-axis that is big enough to show the amount of crashes. And the Y-axis is showing the the amount of deaths, sadly, per the set of crashes. So this is showing how, not involving any car companies in this data, just showing the amount of people. So multiplying the amount of crashes that happen and then multiplying by that by like 3 or 4, and then adding on every single crash and since before 2022, this is the graph that you show. And you can see at the top here, it's being cut off because there's so many crashes that are there that it's very hard to detail the amount of the actual specific number figure of the deaths that have occurred because of AI related crashes. And in conclusion, over the last few years, the amount of crashes relating to AI has risen to an astronomical amount since AI cars were created. And the amount of safety overall in cars has been very scary for people to talk about and to think about. because it's not that much of a prevalent topic, but people are dying to these AI related cars and these malfunctions that are there because these car companies aren't 100% focused on making the best AI related vehicle. Their main focus is to make sure that they get cars out on the front lines and sold, not checking for every single technological problem that could be there. And I know that any technology can have issues. Even this camera that I have here can have technological issues. But if you're a billion-dollar company, you should be able to limit that as much as you possibly can. And thank you for listening to my presentation. And I hope that you are very well informed the next time you think about AI-related cars.
Awesome. Well, great job. Great job. That was so wonderful. I've definitely learned a lot from both you and Arnav's study of cars and traffic. That it's so interesting to have these two different perspectives. I know that we were able to look through a lot, and it was interesting to find the different AI data that was available. So, my first question for you is, what are some of the things that you found that you weren't expecting when you started, like in this experiment? You started off looking at one thing and kind of ended up with others. Is there anything in this that you weren't expecting that surprised you?
That is extremely correct. As when I was looking up the background information and looking up the different pieces of data that was there on AI, specifically AI-related crashes, I was very surprised to see the actual amount because even though AI has been there for a couple of years in cars, I didn't expect that amount of AI-related crashes to be there over the last like 8-9 years. And that was very shocking to me because it made me actually think about what I'm working on and what I'm making an actual project on, and showing this different data and spreading actual awareness of it. And that was very surprising to me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think I was surprised by that as well. It's definitely not something I was expecting when you first started off with this question in class just a few short 2 weeks ago. So, well, thank you so much. We're going to move on to our very last presenter. Great answer to your question. Great presentation. That was so much fun. And then our last presenter today is Dora. She has been so wonderful to have in class. Wall Street better watch out because Dora is coming. She knows so much about finance and tech, and I have learned so very much from her, and I'm so excited for her to share her research with you all today.
Hello, I'm Dora, and I did my presentation on data science in stocks with examples, of course. And first of all, my research question was, how could data science be used to find correlations in stock market data? And I actually changed and tweaked my research question before, as I had problem finding a suitable data set. And in fact, I went through 2 different data sets, both of which had empty data or data that wasn't in the right format to be used in Google Colab. But of course, Ms. Courtney helped me with that. And next, background research. Over 75% of financial professionals believe that data science techniques can help uncover hidden correlations within stock market data. And this is according to Deloitte's Financial Services Industry Outlooks of 2023. And research also indicates that by utilizing data science techniques for correlation analysis, it can help reduce false positives compared to traditional statistical methods by 30%. And this is according to Data Science in Financial Analysis 2021. And also, empirical analysis reveals that the closing value of a stock has the Pearson correlation coefficient of 0.68 with the volume traded on the same day, which you'll see later in the scatter plot that I've screenshotted, which indicates a significant positive relationship. And this is according to XYZ's analytics firm's research from 2022. And regression analysis also demonstrates the closing value of a stock can also be predicted by the R-squared coefficient value of 0.53 by considering the lowest price of the same day. And this comes from the Financial Data Analysis Journal, Volume 45, Issue 3. And as for some definition in terms, the correlation coefficient is the statistical measure of strength in a linear relationship between two variables. And the Pearson correlation coefficient measures linear correlation between two sets of data, which you'll see later. And my hypotheses. I had 3 hypotheses, one of which being that the closing value of a stock could be explained by the volume traded on that day, which was proven to be true, along with the closing value of the lowest price of a stock can be explained by the highest. And this one was proven to be false, but I was thinking that possibly the volume traded could be explained by the date of the stocks. And why did I choose these hypotheses? I chose them to explore data science's role in identifying relationships within the stock market data. And so I can investigate methods to create different graphs in data science, such as scatter plots. And I also analyzed how data science could be used to calculate the correlation between multiple statistics and numbers. First of all, I used statistics from Mercado Libre, which is an online marketplace, short for MELI. And it's a bit small, but in the first scatter plot, you could see the volume traded on the x-axis and also the closing value on the y-axis. As the y-axis is the dependent variable, which depends on the x-axis, we found that there is a strong correlation. And for those who might not know, the closing value, also known as closing price, refers to the last traded price of a stock at the end of a trading session or a given day. And the trading volume refers to the total number of shares traded during a specific time frame. And for my second scatter plot, it's the high on the x-axis and the low price on the y-axis. And as their names specify, high, otherwise known as high price or high point, represents the maximum price at which a stock has been traded within a given time frame, and low is the exact opposite. And there is a very strong, though there are less data points, there is still a strong correlation between these two. As for my third scatter plot, there are little to no correlation between the dates and volumes of the MELI stock when they're traded, and it shows as there is no straight line compared to the other 2 scatter plots, and instead more of messy scatter. And next, I did the same plots for Affirm Holdings, which is a financial company. And here you can see that there are a lot less data points in that all of the points might be slightly more scattered and have more outliers compared to MELI. But in general, they all have a very similar reflection. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome, Dora. I know I learned so much from not only having you in class, but this wonderful presentation and very cute thank you slide. My question for you today is, how do you think these trends that you observed here might apply to other markets?
I believe that as long as there's aren't many outliers, there will be definitely some specific stocks that might have specific outliers, but I think that all stocks should have similar trends as, for example, unless there's certain market sentiments that vary. For example, if Tesla's autonomous vehicles suddenly started failing and maybe those dates could possibly have a certain correlation with the amount of stocks that would be sold or bought, there could be a certain correlation between that given specific times. Yes.
No, that's awesome, Dora. I think that there's a lot of ways you can apply this. And thank you so much for your fun presentation and all of your energy in class. So I'll just say thank you to everyone who's been able to come to our presentations here this evening for Digital Data Camp. I really enjoyed having everyone here and everyone here, all of our students here tonight to present. So thank you all for joining, and we will catch you next time for our next presentations this coming fall for the research experience. Thank you all. Good night.